Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Mona Manap and you're watching Budget Watch Sarawak 2026 live on TVS. Now we've just witnessed the tabling of our 2026 Sarawak budget by our YAB Premier Abang Jo on the 24th of November. And tonight we'll be unpacking, unraveling and try to understand what it means for all of us. Whether you're a business owner, whether you're in the industries, and especially for individuals like you and me. And all the way starting from when you were newborn and maybe when we expire. So this budget is quite a cradle to grave, they would say. And to help us understand that a bit more, we've got three experts with me tonight. And I'll start with the first one on my right, Professor Dr. Evan Lau, Deputy Dean for Faculty of Economics and Business, University Malaysia Sarawak UNIMAS. Prof, welcome back. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
All right. Again, thank you very much, Mona, and of course, TVS to giving me this opportunity to be here this evening to talk about Sarawak budget 2026. So I was born in Sarawak, raised up in Sarawak, and then have my education, higher education in UPM. And then for the past 20 years, I've been serving Unifi Malaysia Sarawak. So here am I, now back in Sarawak.
All right, so you understand what the Sarawak people need and want out of this budget.
Yeah.
Yep. And next to Prof is Hudson, CEO of Hubline Berhad. Welcome back as well, Hudson. We seem to be bumping into each other more often these days. So what are you up to nowadays?
Thank you, Mona. Always nice to bump into you. So I'm the CEO for Hubline, and Hubline is principally involved in logistics business. We have two segments, our shipping segment, which is headquartered out of Miri, and we carry dry bulk cargo in the intra-ASEAN space. We also operate a general aviation arm based in Kota Kinabalu, where we undertake survey work, flying doctor services and all that in aviation services. We also run a flying academy based out of Ipoh in Perak. So that is from Hubline, and I've been following our Sarawak budget since it was announced, and it's been an interesting budget, and I look forward to tonight's discourse.
All right, and I remember you promised us free piloting lessons on
yes,
helicopters
definitely.
before, so I'll get back to you on that. And last but not least, Dr. Muhammad Afzanizam Abdul Rashid, a chief economist from Bank Muamalat, the only non-Sarawakian with us. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I think it gives us a fresh perspective on what it means for us from an outsider point of view, perhaps. And also to give us a perspective of not having a short sendiri sort of mentality on whether things are too good or too bad for us. Tell us a bit more about yourself, Doc.
Sure, Mona. Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be here. And I've always intrigued with Sarawak economy, and tonight we will be discussing and try to dissect the details of it. But principally, I'm a chief economist of Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad. It's the second full-fledged Islamic bank established in 1999. Of course, this budget is really an interesting point of view for us because we're always looking out for more businesses perhaps here in Sarawak, and of course tonight is the right platform for all of us to actually understand more detail and have more point of view can be discussed about Sarawak budget.
Yeah, and I understood you also did the Selangor budget, so maybe that could give us a bit of comparison tonight. Yeah. All right, so let's dive into this now. The theme of the budget is empowering people, advancing prosperity, building a resilient future. So you can see there are three main sort of focus here: the people, building prosperity as in the economy, and then looking forward to the future, resilient future. So Prof, tell us a bit more about this budget and sort of an overview of what it means for all of us. Yeah.
Right. As we can see, the budget 2026 that have been presented, and can see that this is for me, this is a kind of like macro, which covering as we said just now, for the people and to advance the economy, and of course at the same time to build the future of uncertainty. Because as we are living in the world that full of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which is a part of the acronym called VUCA, that we should be able to build that kind of foundation to know that despite unknowing what's going to happen in the future, but the proper planning, the proper strategy that we have, and so on, to put into perspective of the and to strategic responsiveness with the policy alignment, that will be the focus. And on this budget itself, specifically on budget, Sarawak Budget 2026, that's what been part of the focus of Sarawak government, as with the total amount of about 12.9 billion, which 5.6 billion were allocated towards operating expenditure, and 7.3 billion is towards development. So meaning that the major parts, or more than 50% of this budget, 60% of this budget actually are more towards development expenditure, which build up again to know that Sarawak here will still need the kind of development fund or expenditure for infrastructure and related and whatnot. I just give the macro picture of what perhaps it's all about of this snapshot itself.
Yeah. So if the development fund is more on development of infrastructure or rural development, perhaps in Sarawak sense, how about the operating expenditure? Maybe tell us a bit more, what does that mean for all of us?
So the operating expenditure, I guess, most of the time will be more towards the salary side and and related to that. So day-to-day kind of running costs of the government itself, right? Rather than focusing on just the development. So that's the part of the operating expenditure for 2026 side of it, right? That's again, as I said just now, it's day-to-day expenditure for the government. A major part of it will be on salary basis and all the other related.
Yeah. And there were some goals that were set for this budget. And for those who missed the budget, maybe you could relay to us what those goals were.
They are actually in this budget 2026. There are 5 major goals that the Sarawak government want to achieve. For these 5 major goals, number one is transforming Sarawak towards higher income economy, which is always a part of the theme, not just in this budget, but for the past few years since our Premier Abang Jo have taken the premiership for this. That's one, number one. Number 2 is about enhancing, which is part also for the theme for the budget, is enhancing the rakyat social well-being through people-centric development-focused initiative. And number 3 is about strengthening the state fiscal position towards long-run or long-term fiscal sustainability, or fiscal position of financial sustainability in that sense, meaning that importance of having strong fiscal position of the state, meaning that the revenue must be more than expenditure in that sense, so that we can not running into deficits for that purposes. Number 4 is about positioning Sarawak as a regional economic powerhouse and key investment destination in Malaysia, which has always been a part of the theme, like in PCDS and related. So this will be the continuation towards that particular direction itself, right? And number 5 is about transforming Sarawak into renewable energy and green hub. Again, this is also the theme that have been mentioned, or the focus have been mentioned for the past few years, not just particularly this budget 2026.
So it's quite a stable budget. It has been consistently fulfilling some of these items every year, or trying to build up on these items. So it's not a one-off, I would say, or some people might be calling it election budget, but this is quite consistent. So it's not so much of something that is a one-off. Hudson, just moving on to you, from a business point of view, how do you see this budget making it easy for business people?
Yeah, our YAB Premier, who is also our Minister of Finance, has always been vocal, passionate and articulate, right, on how he positions and intends to move Sarawak's economy forward. He came up with the PCDS, Post-COVID Development Strategy, a few years ago, and he has consistently stepped true to the various missions and strategic thrusts in that roadmap. So I see the 2026 budget as a continuation of his mission. And in fact, it lays a good groundwork and foundation for the areas that he champions, right? As mentioned by Prof. Evan just now, areas such as diversifying and increasing sources of revenue, creating a well-digitalized ecosystem for our public service as well as our business transactions, as well as providing a comprehensive social safety net for those in need. Right. In ringgit terms, in ringgit Malaysia terms, we continue to see significant sums of funds being poured into public infrastructure such as roads, bridges, water pipes, telecommunication towers. The main purpose, of course, is to accelerate rural development, as well as making sure that all areas of Sarawak have access to these basic requirements. So developing these infrastructures will definitely enhance business activities, as well as lower the cost in bridging the demand and supply, and indirectly helping ease of doing business. So this 2026 budget also intends to strengthen the civil service and transform state-owned enterprises so as to be a strong partner in the process of transforming our economy. He has emphasized that quite significantly in this budget. So overall, he has laid out how he would like to achieve his budget.
Yep.
And via the few strategic thrusts that he has mentioned during the budget, and his plans to transform the civil service. Yep. So in that, in the various trusts, he has also laid out how he feels that businesses' transactions can be improved, how ease of doing business can be improved.
Yep. And to attract more foreign investments.
In order to attract foreign investments, as well as to be a more efficient economy, rather than, that's why in this budget you will also see he has emphasized a lot on education, upskilling, so as to have a workforce that matches his vision of what our economy should be like.
Yep. And Dr. Nizam, coming from someone from outside Sarawak, how do you see this? And a lot of people are looking up to Sarawak sometimes in terms of quite progressive things that we're doing. What does this budget tell you?
Right. From someone from Peninsula, obviously the main context is about how Sarawak would navigate the challenges, economic challenges, obviously, and then in the context of the decentralizations of the economic management. So, as someone from Peninsula, when I look into the numbers, one thing that really struck me is essentially the division between the operating expenditure and the development expenditure. So I noticed huge sums of amount of money has been geared towards development expenditure, 9.3 billion. That's more than 60% of the total budget. If you look at other budgets, of course, at federal level, operating expenditure accounts about 80% of the total budget. I noticed also in the case of Selangor budget, they allocate about 3.2 billion ringgit for next year, but 1.8 billion ringgit is actually allocated for operating expenditure. So in the case of Sarawak, much emphasis has been put forward towards capacity building, investing for the future. So that really, I would say, Sarawak stands out in terms of how Premier Abang Jo tried to prioritize the economic development. And essentially, when we talk about operating development expenditure, it's about public investment.
Yep.
And when we talk about public investment, obviously we talk about returns of the investment. So this will actually translate into greater productivity going forward. And of course, along the way, there will be the application of technology. I think the other two guest panelists did mention about the new sources of growth, such as renewable energy. So these are the things that will actually resonates really well in terms of how the state government of Sarawak tried to put the right priority in terms of allocating the budget. So on that note, I really look forward in terms of the implementation and the outcome of the budget next year.
And I think there's a lot, just based on what you said, based on what you guys said, I think there's a lot for us to discuss. But we're going to go on a short break and then we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Budget Watch Sarawak 2026, and we've just heard a bit of introduction on the Budget Watch, on the budget, Sarawak budget, sorry. And Prof mentioned about the 5 goals that the budget aims to achieve, but we also have 9 strategic thrusts that will drive it deeper. And the first one is to transform and diversify the Sarawak economy. Now, Prof, tell us a bit more, which sector are we looking at this transformation or diversification?
All right. Again, we talk about transformation and diversified the Sarawak economy itself. Back to my earlier comments about this is not something just new that's put up here in this 2026 budget, but it's a continuation from what the premier budget here since for the past few years, meaning that it has been doing such continuation projects. But along the way, now is that we have to go further up, moving up the scale, or moving up the shift towards that particular direction. So with that, I would say that the diversification here is not just mainly on purpose, on thematic, but it has to be structural, meaning that you have to go to the transformation have to be focusing on the how to shift Sarawak itself from resource-dependent revenues towards the more high-value, innovative-driven and sustainable aligned types of sectors. So for example, of course, we have the traditional sectors, which is, I'm going to mention at least 2 of it. One is on agriculture, and number 2 is on tourism. So on agriculture side, of course, now we're not talking about just the traditional types of agricultural types of, which is also related to manufacturing, how we put in the technology inside to produce a more efficient and more sufficient technological advancing in terms of agricultural products, which links back to what I always mention is about the food security in that sense too. Again, Sarawak have the aim of the dream to produce self-sufficient food
net
producer of food itself, which is very much ideal in this geographical area within our area here in Sarawak, which has huge land. So we have that area, we have the capacity, and then with the help of the technology, that's can shift further the agricultural sector in that particular regards. And on top of that, actually, I want to link back the agricultural sectors are very much linked towards rural development also. Because not giving up the stereotype, but we talk about agriculture, perhaps some of the thinking were towards, oh, this is rural side that more towards agriculture. But we're talking about modern farming style, smart farming style, modern one for this area. Where this happens, then you'll see the multiplier, not just in that particular area, not just in terms of bringing in employment, but also income to that particular area. And this area, people will come in to invest perhaps in the future in this area. That is what the idea of this budget that put up the catalyst towards that. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about tourism, of course, Sarawak is one of the destination that a lot of tourists coming here. And it's one of the main contributor of income towards Sarawak too. And years after years, we always have programs, how we can attract people like conferences, exhibition and whatnot that will attract tourists coming into this, Sarawak here. We have the packages, we have not just the natural beauty, but we also have, further than that, we can, the place that can offer us a big exhibition, concerts perhaps, and so on and related to that can attract more tourists coming here. And one part of, very much related to tourism is, what we call about medical tourism. So which is a huge chunk of also income generating coming into here, right? We can see a lot here in Kuching area, which you want to become not just the tourist destination, but also to attract them with some other, not just the natural, as I mentioned just now, but also becoming the center for exhibition perhaps, and so on. We have huge exhibition hall and related that people can have their conferences and whatnot, right? Yourself itself, we've been involved in that too, which contributing directly and indirectly into tourist arrival and so on.
And this could also be related to the Visit Malaysia year next year, and that's why we're focusing a bit more on tourism. I think there's a lot we could talk about on tourism, but I'm just going to move on to the next trust, which is also as big, to promote investment and to foster strategic industries. That's a big one. There's a lot to talk about. Dr. Nizam, and looking at you, can you tell us a bit more about these strategic industries? What are those?
Well, I think Professor Evan did mention about agriculture sector, and earlier on we did discuss about renewable energy. I mean, if you talk about agriculture sector, I think gone are the days that we rely on the traditional farming. Now we are going into smart farming, which will rely more on technology. So on that note, that requires a lot of investments. It's going to be capital-intensive industries going forward, although it revolves around agriculture. But what we aspire going forward is that agricultural sector that would leverage more on technology and eventually will result in higher crop yield. And with higher crop yield, then it will create more businesses for the Sarawakians and the country as a whole. Because Malaysia, if you look at the numbers, we continue to record trade deficits in agri-food. Last year, we recorded about 39 billion trade deficits. In 1990, it was just merely minus 1 billion trade deficit in agri-food. So you can see how dire in terms of the situation, the over-reliance on import sector. So on that note, it requires investments. And we talk about investment as well, not just about the money, but also the regulatory environment. If you look at the government, how it has been set up in Malaysia, we have federal government, we have state government, and we have local government. So each of them would have their own rules and regulation, SOPs. So clearly, we want to ensure that the experience by our investors will be seamless. I remember in one of the key paper written by the researchers by Ben Negara in 2017, it was about rethinking about the investment incentives. So from that paper, it talks about that investors don't really put so much weight on the tax incentives, but more on the experience. Meaning to say the procedures, the bureaucracy, and in that paper it highlighted that in Malaysia we have like 32 investment promotion agencies. So on that note, I think the Sarawak government is cognizant about those challenges, and it is being addressed in the budget statement. Yeah.
And that's quite interesting. Not the tax incentives, which you traditionally thought would be the main driver of people coming in. But yeah, I was just talking to someone and they compared the cost of living. Because for them to move the whole family here, it's not just about tax incentive for the business, but also cost for the owner. Yeah, the ecosystem, the culture, the ease of doing business. Now, when we talk about strategic industries, Hudson, you mentioned about some new industries that are coming up right now, like aerospace. We're going into AI as an enabler for some of them, semiconductor. What do you think about all these new industries that we're going into, and how does that fare for investments?
Yes, so the current Sarawak economy is very resource-based. It's a very resource-reliant, oil and gas, palm oil type of industry. What we are trying to move forward is on a more technology, innovation-driven economy.
Knowledge-based, yeah.
Knowledge-based economy. So to do that, such as moving into AI, semiconductor manufacturing, or semiconductor design, this requires significant investment in terms of capability, knowledge. So I think the government has taken cognizance of that. They've started SMD, a body to look into this particular industry. They are also looking at artificial intelligence as a potential industry that the Sarawak government and businesses here in Sarawak can undertake. And from there, I think we are seeing that the push, the various incentive and the regulatory framework that the government is trying to encourage to be implemented, right? So for me, definitely there is a move towards a newer, different knowledge-based, technology, innovation-based industry. And the budget tries to implement various regulatory framework, governance framework, to make sure that there is a proper foundation for this type of industries to start and take off from here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned about knowledge-based economy, and Abang Jo mentioned also that we won't be just the consumers of technology, but also the producers of technology. And for that, we need capable people, and that comes to education. And I think we're all aware of the free tertiary education, FTES, for everyone. But what I saw was probably a bit lacking was early childhood care, which is not exactly education, but will have an impact on education later on. Now, if you read the book Behave by Robert Sapolsky, mentioned if the child is born into a lower socioeconomic background, they will have some deficiencies in brain development, and that makes them more susceptible to depression, to bad behavior, to bad decision making. So for us to go into this, we need to make good decisions. We need to have good leaders in the future. So how do we see that, yes, tertiary education is great, but should we put a bit more emphasis on early childhood care? Prof, can you share with us?
There's a good one there. I mean, talking about that. So what we see here in this 2026 budget, there's a strategic thrust on building up the high quality education and human capital, which is part of it is the talent. So what I see here is that in this knowledge-based or knowledge-intensive economy or sectors, talent is actually the real infrastructure that we need to invest, whether it's putting up the money towards the tertiary education or from the beginning, from the childhood education itself. And there are actually emphasized, as you might seen in the budget 2026, that there's a allocation towards the child care or childhood education. In that sense, perhaps the amount of money are not that big comparatively. The ringgit is not that big comparatively to the tertiary education, which is the focus. I mean, my take is that that is important, of course, the childhood education, because they bring up the long-term investment from the childhood. On the day that you are born, you'll be given the types of, funding is that already there until you are at the tertiary education. And there's allocation along the way. Of course, the focus now is more towards the tertiary education, is because we need to produce that talent in perhaps in 5 years to come, or less than that, to achieve what to achieve what have been put up for 2030. So that's part of it. I can see that kind of relevance towards that direction. But at the same time also, you never forget about the childhood education along the way, that and providing this proper education, not just free, but proper education and investment towards this direction. One of it is what we've seen has been announced, not just in this budget, that have been announced earlier on, is on the Yayasan International Schools, which I think is a very good, very right decision of doing that, having another avenue of education that focusing on international side of it in Sarawak here, right? Which is also part of the whole ecosystem of the education ecosystem here in Sarawak, under Yayasan Sarawak itself. So that's benefited, and that will create and that will build up the talent, right? That's what we need for the future workforce. The future is not very far, perhaps a new, like I said just now, a few years down the road, we need that talent. So you need to build that alongside with all the other investment that have. So it's very much of human capital intensive types of investment that the government have putting up from the university point of view and so on. Like myself, of course, myself is in university. Of course, we also, from the 30-year point of view, this is very good, despite that the so-called free education, when the university that I'm into now is not part of it, of the free education. But then again, we still contributed to the Sarawak workforce as a whole, or talent development in that sense, and that's what requires by Sarawak itself, to ensure that whatever strategic sectors that have been focusing on, we can produce that talent, and for now, and at the same time, with the early childhood and also middle age school, primary school, secondary school, and whatnot, towards that direction.
Brought up to university.
Yeah, brought up to the university. That's what the whole package of it.
Yeah, and this is all along the range of different sectors. So we've got the agricultural, vocational allocation as well. We've got TVET that covers a lot of what we need right now in terms of, say, aerospace or AI, or to actually just run, say, we have Air Borneo now, we need to have those engineers that are able to. And I just watched just now, Prof. Sim mentioned that we are short of doctors and nurses, so we need to have more people going into this, going to tertiary education and TVET as well. All right, so we've got a few other trusts that we'll be discussing, but right now we're going to go on a short break. Welcome back to Budget Watch Sarawak 2026. Now, just before the break, we were just covering 3 of the strategic thrusts of the Sarawak budget. And the last one was on building high-quality education and human capital. Now, we're just going by thrust so that we cover most of the budget, if we could, in this program. But guys, just jump in as we go along. Now, the 4th thrust is on protect and sustainably manage natural resources for environmental sustainability. Now, that's a big thing and has always been mentioned by our Premier everywhere he goes in his keynote addresses. Hudson, maybe you want to start on this.
Sure. So our Sarawak government has embraced the concept of sustainability in managing our natural resources and environment. As you rightly mentioned, they are very passionate about this particular area in how the economy will be shaped. So in this budget, our Premier has committed to taking responsible actions on climate change with the implementation of several key initiatives. Right. So the initiatives include drawing up a climate change roadmap. Yep. Right, to basically to set the direction for our transition to a low carbon and climate resilient economy. He is also initiating strategies in the pursuit of achieving net zero carbon emission by 2050. This is, of course, in line with the worldwide trend or goals, from the United Nations goals, but it is not an easy task to achieve. So he has set up this roadmap and is trying to achieve it. The focus of this strategy will be to how to achieve a clean energy transition, as well as encouraging low carbon industries and sustainable forest management.
Yep.
At the same time, he's going to establish a climate change center, yep, right, to look into this area. So this climate change center will be a central hub to coordinate and monitor all the climate actions that will be undertaken across Sarawak. And this center will also focus on policy making, research, as well as data management. So this is quite an interesting concept that he will try to centralize all matters relating to climate change into a hub, right?
And that's directly under the Premier's office himself.
It's probably directly under him, this carbon change center, yep, right? Now, at the same time, he is going to start carbon levies, yeah, right? Carbon levy specifically on the oil and gas and energy sectors in 2026.
So it doesn't apply to all of us, it's only
Not
for
yet.
these sectors? Not yet?
Not
Okay.
yet. He mentioned for 2026, it will be on the oil and gas and energy sectors, on certain identified areas yep, within these sectors. So, but the interesting thing is that the revenue collected from this climate change, from this carbon levy, will go into a climate change fund, right? Which will be for the benefit of communities across Sarawak. Right? So he will utilize the amounts collected to encourage more renewable energy, more activities that will help our climate. Right? Funds are also being allocated for various initiatives to enhance our environmental sustainability, restoration, as well as conservation of our forests and geoparks, right? So those are important, even though it may not be something that we see on a day-to-day basis. Yep. But in Sarawak, we have significant forests, totally protected areas. We have geoparks that are significant for our wildlife as well as our biodiversity. So I think such efforts are commendable to ensure that we do not forget about our environment as we progress. You know, interestingly, I also saw funds are being set aside for a bio-industrial park and Sarawak Biodiversity Center, Bioprocess Commercial Center, all right, which will be started in Samarahan. And on top of that, there will be funds set up to build Sarawak's first GMP certified facility for manufacturing of nutraceutical products. So GMP is basically a good manufacturing process certification that factories need to get to showcase that they are of a certain standard. Products manufactured there are of a certain standards. And the nutraceutical industry is a booming industry. So, I mean, all of us take vitamins and supplements and health items. So this is an interesting avenue of how he can then utilize these facilities to commercialize our abundant bio resources, our indigenous resources that are available in Sarawak. And this, in a way, will then generate more revenue for us.
Yeah. In his winding up speech, he mentioned we do have a lot of resources, but we don't want to fall into the Dutch disease.
Exactly.
That means, you know, you have a lot of resources alone, it doesn't build a future, and how you manage that. And you don't want to wake up 50 years later, according to Abang Joe, and realize that we have depleted resources.
Exactly.
So I think these are some of the initiatives that we have in place. Now, if we move on to Strategic Trust 5, Bridging Development Gap and Driving Rural Economic Growth. I think that has been a consistent focus throughout some of the budgets that have been announced. Prof, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, this has been mentioned just now earlier on, and also by my fellow speakers here. That rural development has always been the main thrust in terms of to uplift the livelihood of these rural areas and whatnot, because we realize the government realized that there's a divide between rural and urban area, not just in Sarawak itself, but particularly the whole Malaysia itself. Yeah. So that's where all this thing coming into picture. And then what the Sarawak government have been doing is focusing on this, and this budget itself actually, if you're looking into the ringgits and cents, is the largest amount of allocation towards that particular direction. Yeah. Right? Meaning that that show the commitments throughout the years, throughout at least these 3-4 years, that the focus is still on the rural development that's needed to be developed. Yep. Because our geographical area, our significant geographical area, and roads is one of the things to ensure connectivity. Right, roads and bridges is one of the things that the focus on. The second one is about the rural electrification scheme, RES, and we have this supply project, water supply projects, village access road, long houses upgrading programs, telecommunication, which is very much related to digital connectivity, agriculture modernization, as I mentioned just now on the agricultural side, which is going to give an impetus of positive impact towards the community there at that site. And at the same time, you have this building up this community-based entrepreneurship and SMEs, which is also part of the focus. So all of these are interlinked. That is why the focus is still very much on this, and recognizing that there are divide or gap between the rural and urban area. All this is, of course, towards the long-term, long-term commitment of the Sarawak government itself. Not just this budget 2026, but we want to see the impact spillover, the positive spillover will come perhaps in the next few years once the bridges are connected, the roads are properly. We have a proper road towards one direction or towards that, and that will ensure that kind of connectivity. But on top of that, the same thing that I did mention just now, although is on which I do not really mention on the tourism side, it's also the new connectivity through air, which is through the air Borneo, which is part, although it's not really part of rural economic growth, but then again, this will connect the connectivity between the urban area and the rural area, which to ensure the whole Sarawak is connected through that kind of system itself. Yeah. And this will further enhance of what the theme of the 2026 budget here towards advancing prosperity. I believe so.
Yep.
That sense.
And when we talk about the Air Borneo, I think Abang Jo mentioned it's not all about making profit, maybe not yet in the first few years, but it's more about connecting communities, maybe about trade in terms of the urban and rural areas.
And that's very correct.
Yep.
In this budget, he also talked about air connectivity, as mentioned, as well as in the ports, right?
Yep.
So he is not only looking at roads and bridges. It's not only the rural economy, right? Having an efficient
Transportation system.
logistics system, really enables efficient transport of goods and movements of people, right? And this will help the economy significantly, right? As mentioned, in having airports within Sarawak, right? It can help tourism because our tourists can actually fly into the more remote areas of Sarawak or the areas where normally they will have to go by roads, right? It can shorten their traveling time, and this can be important for some tourists, especially those from overseas. And having an efficient port system with safe, he's putting in vessel tracking management systems, adds to navigation to ensure safe transport of goods. And that is very important as we build up Sarawak as a hub for the whole of Borneo for transportation of goods, right? Once we have efficient road networks, efficient transport systems, shipping, airline, the whole of Borneo can be our gateway. We can be the gateway for the whole of Borneo in that sense. And I believe this type of infrastructure are very good for us as we build, as we progress to be a higher level economy, right? And on top of that, all the roads and bridges enable goods that are currently produced in the rural areas to come to market in the urban area, right? Or even to be exported out efficiently. Having a supply chain that is efficient brings costs down significantly, and that's important for the economy to prosper.
Yep. And when we talk about bringing costs down, we also need to increase or bring up the livelihoods or the salaries or wages of people. And I think that brings on to the next item, which is safeguarding rakyat's livelihood. So I think that's a popular part of the budget. So we've got the Sumbangan Keperluan Asas, I think SKAS. I think that's a popular one, which is also similar to federal. Dr. Nizam, tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. I think to put some context to this, perhaps I can share some statistics on Sarawak's inflation rate. If you look at inflation rate in Sarawak for the first 10 months of this year, it's about 0.9%, very low. Compared to last year, 2.4%. Compared to 2020, it was 3.1%. So the inflation is trending down. But bear in mind, this doesn't mean prices are going down. No, prices are still going up.
Oh, yep.
But at a slower speed.
Okay.
So it is being reflected in terms of the impact to the cost of living and the real purchasing power. And if I can share, if you look at Sarawak's median household income last year, based on DOSM survey, for Sarawak is around 5,500 ringgit, 504 ringgit. Yeah, that's the nominal. You don't adjust it with the cost of living. But after adjusting it to cost of living, in real terms, not 5,500 ringgit that you earn in Sarawak, but actually you are earning around 4,317 ringgit. That's a loss of close to 1,200 ringgit in terms of losing of the purchasing power.
Wow.
So this issue is very complex because we talk about prices, we talk about market structure, but of course to address this, this will take some time. And this is where I think the role of the cash transfers program really come into very handy, at least to try to alleviate the burden of the cost of living in the immediate terms. Yeah, it's a stopgap measures, so to speak.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think we have seen the allocation for Sumbangan Keperluan Asas has been raised from 557 million ringgit this year to around 640 million ringgit for next year.
Yep.
And such measures, as mentioned, is actually being used at federal level. Sumbangan Tunai Rahmah, Sumbangan Asas Rahmah. You can see in budget 2026, the federal government has put in a target of 15 billion ringgit in terms of allocation pretty much similar to this year allocation. And if I can relate to Selangor, because they have recently announced their budget, they also place a similar importance where they call it Bantuan Hidupan Sejahtera Selangor, BINKAS. So you can see these cash transfers policy instruments is very critical to alleviate the burden of cost of living among the households, at least in the immediate term.
Yep.
But it's a stopgap measures.
Yeah,
As
I was
said,
just going to say it's not long term,
it's
but
not long term, but
it's something.
important.
Yes, yeah. And you need that because then people don't go into in need or desperation, I would say. There's also an allocation for senior citizens earning 5,000 and below without partners or children, 500. There's also for, I think this was under the Kenyalang Gold Card Death Compassionate Assistance, and a total of 10 million allocated for that. I think there was an increase. That's not new, I suppose. Prof, do you know is this new or is this something that has been introduced before?
The assistance has been mentioned just now by Dr. Nizam. It's part of the necessary, I would use the word necessary policy that has been introduced not just in Sarawak, but basically in the country itself, and it goes back not just this past few years, and it have positive impact towards what you have, especially towards the more needed quarters of in the society. You know, can imagine that. I mean, I used a simple analogy in that sense. You were given, for example, government provide or given assistance of 500. So where does this 500 will goes to?
Yep.
So most of the time, this 500 for family, perhaps of family of 2 kids. They will spend of what needed in the family, perhaps for the necessary keperluan asas, for example, in that particular family, or maybe for the children's schools, expenditure and whatnot related to that. So that 500 ringgit are very useful for this, perhaps for this example of this family, and it goes back to the economy. So whatever that been given back, for example, been given the 500. Allocation that been given assistance, the 500 will roll back again to the economy.
Yep.
As part of it. So it's ensure that the business is continuing and ensure that the economy is moving on, and ensuring that there'll be more impetus or more growth in that sense, because as an economist, we believe in where we spend, the economy is moving. This is from the point of Keynesian point of view. Which is true in any of the economy around the world, and Sarawak is not unique in terms of giving it. But coming back to what you're saying, most part of the giving up assistance there is not new. It's just that most part of it are giving up an upgrade.
Yes.
An upgrade meaning that more allocation on that particular side. Same thing goes to the federal side, which is giving more. So those who are in need of that feel that this amount of it will be very good for them in terms of, I mean, whether you're looking into the short term or whether medium term in that sense.
Yeah.
But of course, in the long term, we have all the other strategies to go hand in hand with what the short term announcement had to be done.
Yeah.
But even if I can add, even as we strive to grow our economy and be more prosperous, we have to be mindful that a comprehensive social safety net has to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
There will be people who are in need of it, and we shouldn't forget about those type of people. You know, and it is good to know that we are setting aside significant sums of money every year. To ensure that all segments of society reaps the benefit of the income that the state is earning, right? And I think that is an important area that shouldn't be overlooked. We should continue actually to increase our allocation to these various areas, and included in the areas also. You look at home ownership. Help, you know, they're helping you with rental, they're helping you with owning a house for the first time if you can. I believe there are national policies that also align to that. Yes. But at the same time, it's always nice to be able to own a house, you know, and for the government then to put in an effort, all right, either for the B40 segment especially, right? And I think they are also using Mutiara mortgage and credit to assist those in the B40 and M40 in securing loans in order to buy their house. I think those areas are very commendable, and we should encourage it to be implemented more. Right?
Yeah, I think there's about 20 million to support home financing for B40 and M40, and I think that's a major sort of challenge for a lot of people. I think that's a very interesting topic for this. I think there's a lot to talk about, but we have to go on a short break. Welcome back to Budget Watch Sarawak 2026, and we were just talking about safeguarding the rakyat's livelihood. Now that's a very hot topic, and a lot of allocations have been made. A lot of them are not new, just an upgrade from the previous one, Sumbangan Keperluan Asas Sarawak, and then Dr. Nizam, you compared that with what we have been cast in Selangor perhaps. You wanted to add something to that.
Right. I just want to share some statistics from the survey done by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, looking at the composition of household income in Malaysia. Basically, there are four types. Salary employments, which is the largest. Last year, it accounted about 63%. And the other one is working on their own. And then income from property and investment. And of course, the cash transfers programs. So you can see the share or the contribution of cash transfers program has been steadily rising.
Oh, wow.
If you can quote, in 2012, I think during the Najib administration, BRIM, Bantuan Rakyat Malaysia, was started back then. The share of cash transfers program was merely around 6.5%. And it's steadily rising to 7.6% in 2014, 8.5% in 2016, and all the way to 2024 to 10.6%. While, as I mentioned earlier on, while we, thankful about this such policy response, but it clearly indicates the underlying issues plaguing the economy, and not just every state. I mean, certain states, but across the board, across the nation. So, on that note, it warrants for a more comprehensive economic management, economic strategies that could promote social upward mobility. that should be we aspire on. And I think Sarawak government has been placing so much emphasis on education, free education, especially on tertiary. So I think it's a step in the right directions. But beyond that, I think we should aspire that the number of recipients of this program should actually over time reduce because of the success of this program.
Yeah. But is it increasing?
So far from looking at the numbers, it's keep on increasing. And at the national level, 9 million are the recipients of the STR in Sarawak.
That's bad.
Our labour force, it was around 16 million. That's more than half. So it tells a lot of issues surrounding of our livelihood among Malaysians and of course including Sarawakians as well.
Yeah, but this is something that we should try to reduce, but this is still a required, like you said, stopgap measure. We still need that for the time being.
Right.
And when we talk about the rakyat, we talk about as well culture or everyday activities like sports and youth development, and that's something also which not extensively but mentioned a bit in the budget. Maybe you want to touch a bit on that.
Right. I think in the budget speech it did mention about this, and then it mentioned about the SEA Games that will be held sometime in 2027. And then 26, and then and then he mentioned about the allocation for SEA Games, allocation 107 million. To me, the way I see it, these are the direct fiscal spending that will create the ripple effects, the multiplier effects, because they will. I think the immediate beneficiaries, obviously, the construction sector. Then it will have an impact, a positive impact on manufacturing to manufacture the raw materials, the building materials. And the services sector, the engineering, architecture and whatnot, and financial services as well. So I think the SEA Games, the organization of organizing the SEA Games event, essentially a form of catalyst, immediate catalyst actually, to actually promote the domestic demand. I mean it's the right strategy, obviously, considering that the uncertainties that we are in for next year. Next year, bear in mind, we are going to face a full brunt of the tariff imports by the US. It's a full-blown. So I think many economists are still figuring out the impact. But if you look at the national budget 2026, they are projecting a growth rate of between 4% to 4.5%. And you can see the net contraction in terms of net export is about 32%. That's huge. So it's a reflection of the MOF wariness about the impact of the tariff. So I think, and therefore, there is a need to pump prime the domestic demand. And by having the SEA Games would be it's a step in the right directions.
I mean events, and I always believe that bringing events or international events or regional events into your destination will always have spillover economic impacts. It will benefit not just the construction or manufacturing side, but also the restaurants, the hotels, everyday people, tourism, obviously.
Service providers.
Service providers. So I think that's going in the right direction, and maybe we need more of those events just to spur the domestic spend. And when we talk about spurring domestic activities, we also want to touch a bit about research and development. That's something that was mentioned, and science and technology and innovations. I think that has been mentioned more and more these past few years. Tell us a bit more of what's in the budget on this.
Yes, so transitioning Sarawak from the resource-based economy, as mentioned, to a technology, knowledge-based economy is a key thrust of our Sarawak government. So numerous efforts and funds have been allocated for research and development. And one of the key aspects of this budget is on how digitalization can impact such research, development, science and technology efforts. So they are looking at how to improve the ecosystem surrounding digital infrastructure usage over the next few years. So in my opinion, this is the right approach, as digitalization and the use of e-business solutions, including AI, in our business environment, as well as everyday life, is commonplace and essential for successful revenue generation. Yeah, it is good to note that emphasis is being placed now, today, on cybersecurity and data governance. It is something that you need to get right up front. You can't only look at it after people have or entities have started building their digital space before you look at cybersecurity and data governance, especially when it deals with government sector. Yeah, so there are emphasis being placed as data needs to be properly and securely managed and protected in order for the for it to be for the users to feel that they are adequately protected. All right. In that sense, this budget will look at areas and study how this data and governance, data governance and cybersecurity will be done. Funds continue to be invested in research and development efforts also in support of science, technology and innovation. This is an investment that needs to be made to deepen our capabilities as well as our intellectual properties. I do hope that some of these efforts will be successfully commercialized in the near future. As you know, you can do a whole lot of research, but it helps if you are able to successfully commercialize it to generate revenue streams.
And I think what AB Premier mentioned rightfully, that Sarawak cannot and will not stand by the sidelines. We need to jump on the bandwagon right now instead of being left behind. And I think there's 5 million for the Sarawak Artificial Intelligence Center. I think that should be the first, perhaps in Malaysia, or maybe one of the first few that's setting this up. And I think that's a move in the right direction. Get on it and study it while people are still learning about it.
Yes, AI is something that has been a lot more commonplace in the last few years. Almost every day you use some form of AI now. Even if you Google something, it used to be you come up with a list of documents that you can see, but now the AI is the first thing you see. It gives you a rundown of what they could compile based on the search that you do. And so in businesses, it is used commonly, right? Whether it is a tool that you depend on significantly or only to a certain extent, but it is pervasive. It is there now. So for Sarawak to also look at having more involvement in the AI space, as well as the semiconductor space, I think it is an interesting move forward. And I do hope that they can collaborate well with private sectors in order to build the ecosystem as an industry here.
And you mentioned AI not just for businesses or private sector, but also for the government themselves in terms of service delivery. And I think that was also one of the key thrust in the budget on strengthening government capacity and public service delivery. I think one of the key items that was mentioned and got my attention was the state-owned enterprise and how that's managed. Would you like to talk a bit more about that?
Yes. So interactions between government officers and business community as well as general rakyat is everywhere. I mean, it happens very significantly in our everyday life. Our expectation is that officers are knowledgeable and are well equipped when interacting with us. Right. So in this sense, setting aside funds to make sure that we have a first-class civil service is good. Right. Then of interest to me is to mention that there will be restructuring of the department of certain departments and agencies in the government, principally to remove overlaps and streamline functions to have a greater clarity and accountability across the systems. So as mentioned, Mona, by you, that looking at state-owned enterprises moving forward, right, their intent is to transform state-owned enterprises, so that they become a more structured and cohesive organization that do not have significant duplication in services between different departments or agencies in Sarawak, right? And of course, having done that, they would also like to improve professionalism and capabilities in all these organizations, right? And also, once these organizations or SOEs are well defined, clear in their undertaking, and are professionally run, it is the hope of the government that they will be able to generate revenue and therefore reduce their dependency on the government, generate sufficient revenue so that they can be self-sufficient in that sense. So that is where the government is looking at for SOEs. So their overall aim basically is to ensure that these SOEs are professionally run, are transparently managed with the highest standards of governance and integrity. And in so doing, they are also going to introduce a Sarawak Code of Corporate Governance, right? The budget doesn't tell us whether it will be benchmarked against, say, for example, the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance, or do they have their own set of governance measures, as well as having an integrated results-based management system. So the government departments will then now be more significantly monitored, and their results or their KPIs need to be clearly wrought out. So I certainly welcome this and to improve our Sarawak government civil service.
And I think it was mentioned in the budget itself, less in number but stronger in capacity and focus, I think, for the state-owned enterprise. I know we're going chock-a-block here because we've got a chock-a-block of things to talk about, but we'll give you a breather and go on a short break. Welcome back to the Budget Watch Sarawak 2026, and we're here on the last segment of this show, and we're gonna do a bit of recap. But before that, maybe we touch on a bit some of the items that we did not get to touch earlier as we were chugging along, going fast. Now, it was mentioned in the news that Sarawak is an aging state and will be an aging state by 15% actually of the population is aging. In the budget, I think there's only a few items under the Kenyalang Gold Card, putting in some death compassionate and kidney failure allocations as well for people who are going through that. All good, but do we think that this is enough considering how the population is going to aging? Prof, your thoughts on this?
That's a very interesting question looking forward, as not just the state, particularly the world is having this issue now of aging population or aging society, whichever definition we call it. And numbers of policies have been put aside on this on this part. For example, perhaps some of the countries will go into increasing the age limit for working population or working workforce in that sense. That's one of it. But that have some repercussion also, and so on and so on. So, but again, looking into the near future, Sarawak workforce itself, for the population itself, with the advancement of technology in the healthcare, we're going into the direction. Perhaps on average, human or man or woman aside, that can live up more than 70 of age on average, and that creates that kind of vacuum, the vacuum there. Where how do we deal with this population? Let's say they retired 60s or 55 and so on. What they're going to do for the next 15, 20 years or 30 years? Yep. Are the government going to still paying up the pensions and whatnot? So that's not just a question here in Sarawak, but as I mentioned, throughout the world, it's a common issue.
That's right.
And where are we going into that direction and whatnot? So I think that as part of what the budget, especially for 2026 here, mentioning about, talking about how we can focusing on the rakyat, social and well-being itself, people-centric. So this part of it can be is a very important part and important quarters. Now maybe the percentage is small, but coming into the future, it's going to be big and so on. So how are we going to deal with it? So we should start, perhaps as what they mentioned just now, something like that on the Kenyalang Gold Card and whatnot. But there'll be more coming up.
More of it,
of incentive, not just incentive, but the programs perhaps, or retraining this much more 60, 65 above generation, perhaps to go back to the workforce perhaps, or doing something more productive along the way of perhaps the 20 years and whatnot, rather than staying stationary or idle at one place for the rest of the 20 years.
Speaking of productive, actually the fertility rate is actually going down, and that's adding on to it. So now you're aging and you don't have more young people coming into the economy, into the workforce. Dr. Nizam, how is it happening in the rest of Malaysia, since you probably have a better view of that?
Right. I think when we talk about aging populations, we always talk about how do we manage the retirees upon their life after retirements, but we seldom talk about how to replace the the aging population, so to speak. We talk about how to build a family and how we can encourage women participations in the economy. So I think that's also important. So I think the federal government is taking similar steps, and as well for the Sarawak state government in addressing this issue. And obviously, I think the government needs to place more importance on how the government could actually try to provide the right ecosystem so that the women participations in the labour force will be much more higher going forward, especially those who have been taking a break, to take care of their family, and then after their offspring become more, reaching the adolescence, then they want to rejoin back the labour force again. What's the treatment like, So I think we need to really look into this more seriously. But beyond that, I think it's about how we should build to promote building a family institutions. Because I've been hearing around a lot of childless couple, for instance. So to me, these are the disturbing trends, which if you allow it to happen, then you can expect the aging population will become more dire in terms of the situation.
Right.
So it's a universal problem, the way I see it.
And we're going into all these new industries, new sectors, AI, aerospace. We need more workers. We're talking about tertiary education. We're talking about TVET. Now, we don't have enough students to come into play. So that's probably another session that we need a discussion, a whole new session on that. Now, just to wrap things up on the budget, what would your sort of thought or your parting thoughts be for our audience, our viewers, on this budget and the future of Sarawak based on this? We'll start with you, Doc.
Sure. I think the state government has projected the GDP growth of 5% to 6% for next year. That's a very optimistic view. So therefore, I think to realize that, I think the state government machinery needs to work harder in terms of how they should, try to promote what are the incentives that are available that can promote more investment activities. So I think it's about the communications so that people will participate in these programs.
Yep. And Hudson, how about you?
Yes. So a key driver for Sarawak's economy is in the oil and gas sector. And the downward trend in the crude oil price in 2025 has certainly caused the industry to be more prudent and conservative in its development expenditure outlook. And as we can see also, that actually caused a reduction in our revenue for 2025. But having said that, the Sarawak government's push into renewable energy and the green economy has captured significant attention, not only within Malaysia, but also regionally and worldwide. So there's a great excitement that we have this ability, and the government has the will to scale up our RE resources, renewable energy resources, via different directions, be it hydro, solar, cascading dams, or even converting waste to energy or waste to resources. Yep. So these industries investing in Sarawak, in effect, will be utilizing green energy if they in their manufacturing process, if they invest in Sarawak. And this is a big plus for many companies that are looking at investment. Right. So this has created a fair bit of excitement in the business community. This push towards the renewable sector as well as the green economy sector. So overall, whilst Sarawak is not immune from external economic and geopolitical events, within Sarawak there is great enthusiasm and optimism that there will be many potential new business opportunities given our current progression in the years ahead. So I do believe our budget can be sustained over the next few years. And if development activities continue to grow and new business segments are continued to be looked into, definitely, in my opinion, our economy will grow into a more diverse and sustainable economy.
Thanks, Hudson. I'm just going to jump back a bit to Dr. Nizam because we're talking about renewable energy and green hydrogen or green economy when we talk about it. Just to give a bit of comparison, because Sarawak is always out there talking about being the hub or the battery of ASEAN, they call it, or the green battery of ASEAN. How is it with the other states or with the rest of Malaysia based on your observation of this?
Yeah, I think in Selangor, I noticed they are going for, they talk about nuclear energy.
Yes.
Nuclear energy as one of their main aspirations. And of course, beyond that, they have started with waste to energy. So on that note, we have seen key states have started to be more proactive in terms of ensuring their energy security going forward. And of course, one of the key things I noticed in the case of Selangor, they plan to invest more in terms of talent in areas related to nuclear energy. So they've been looking at providing scholarship and whatnot to ensure that they can build the future talents to promote nuclear energy at some point in the future.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that there's talk about venturing to small modular reactors.
Yes.
For nuclear energy. And I know nuclear is something that people shy away from or don't want to talk about because of the danger, because of the stigma, I suppose, with that. Prof, what do you think? Will Sarawak go into nuclear energy anytime soon?
We have for me personally, or what been said for the past few years, and of course in the budget and the previous presentation from Sarawak government itself, perhaps that's not yet the area of exploration, but we're going into hydrogen, green hydrogen, and focusing more on different sets of renewable energy in that sense. That focusing on, and I mean nuclear is can be part of the renewable itself, and but that's not yet my take on that part, but perhaps in the future. But on that note itself, if you look if you look, I mean, I want to go back to the one of the strategic trust number 8 on research and development.
Yep.
So Hudson talk about how industry can be play a very significant role in that sense, which is true. And on that particular partnership also, we need at the university level or the researcher level, we can enhance that R&D ecosystem itself, because you need the experts for this R&D, and then you need the government funding there, and then the industry to play a role, and of course the environment as a whole, and of course the society which will use this technology and be a part of the whole ecosystem itself. So I look at that as more comprehensive, the kind of model, not just Sarawak itself, but of course the country itself can use or can enhance to know we are not government. I mean, this budget itself is not just something that Sarawak government presented for themselves.
Yep.
For the future of the whole Sarawak itself, and the future of the economy has been said here in the as the theme of the budget itself, and that bring forward everyone would have their own capacity to be a part of this initiative and towards this particular direction. So, and on top of that, as been part of the policy alignment towards PCDS. So this budget is a continuation from the rest that have been presented and towards this direction. And personally, I would think that this is very positive view outlook into that particular direction.
Yeah.
And that will, and not only that, on the side of, I say just now, we need to spend to ensure that the economy is growing, but at the same time, we need to have more stream of revenue coming in.
Yep.
So where are these all stream of revenue coming in? As been mentioned by three of us just now, that there's numbers of stream of revenues in terms of the strategic responsiveness of this budget 2026, which will bring in more revenue to the states, and with that we can spend. So it's either you find the revenue, the money first, and then you spend, or you spend first and then you find the money.
Yep.
That's part of what the economists always believe in. You spend, or and that would see how what types of behavior or what types of policy alignment that we need to do alongside towards this direction.
Yep. And if this year was, just building on what you said, if this year was the last of the 12 MP, next year is the start.
Yeah.
So that's a different treatment, I think, because the 12 MP was more on recovery, it was more on post-COVID. So starting next year, it should be more on development or building up on that foundation.
Yeah,
What do you
right.
think of that, of this budget?
I mean, that's why the focus of the budget in terms of the goal just now and all the theme itself is to empowering the people, advancing the prosperity in that sense, and building up the capacity that we have, and the infra must be there. Of course, that's go along the way, and at the same time we have strategic sectors that you want to focus on, like I mentioned just now, agriculture, tourism, and all the digital transformations sectors related to that. Let's all go hand in hand, and with the 13 Malaysian plan started next year,
Yep.
Then they'll be exciting to see that how this development will ensure that the benefit is not just for certain quarters of people, but for the whole society. There's no one left behind here for Sarawak and for the people of Sarawak, and not just for Sarawak. The budget 2026 specifically, of course, for Sarawak, but generally is for the country itself.
Yes.
When Sarawak grow, the country will grow eventually,
right.
and that's the aim here.
Yep. Thank you, Prof. And I think that wraps up quite nicely of our discussion tonight on the budget of Sarawak 2026. We've heard a lot about how the budget will benefit people from when they were young and when you get old, and how the aging population is probably the next step of our discussion. Now, thank you so much for joining us on this Budget Watch Sarawak 2026, this live on TVS, and hopefully the next one will have a more discussion on the next budget. Mona Manap here. Thank you for watching us. Good night.